It's my pleasure now to introduce Rachael Miller, Williston class of 1988, as our honored speaker. Rachael was a 3-year boarding student at Williston, and I'm guessing that being a swimmer and a water polo player created an affinity for oceans, and her work you'll hear about today. Rachael is one of these folks who I really admire. She's a crooked path person, meaning that not everything always goes in a straight line, and after leaving Williston, she attended the University of Rochester, finally graduated from Brown University with some pretty cool stuff in between, which I think you'll hear about. And she is certainly one who takes to heart our motto of pursuing a passion with a purpose filled with integrity. She is the founder of the Rosalia Project for a Clean Ocean. I admit, Rachael, I mispronounced that to myself, thinking it was Rosalita, but I think that's because I'm a Bruce Springsteen fan. And she currently serves as CEO of Coraball, a company geared to reducing microfiber pollution. Of her many accomplishments as a sailor, environmentalist, entrepreneur, and fellow Vermonter, her status as a Coast Guard certified master captain of 50-ton vessels is, to me, the coolest thing she does. Please join me in giving Rachael a warm Williston welcome home.
Thank you for that extremely generous welcome and for the invitation to be here. It's really exciting to be back at Williston, especially for this particular occasion. So first, I want to join the administration, the teachers, families, and your friends in congratulating today's inductees and recognizing your hard work, achievement, and talent. My job is to protect the ocean, and I love my job. I don't love every single minute or every single task that I do, but this is a job that is mostly of my own design, and this is the reason I was put on this planet. I didn't know that when I sat where you sat a long time ago. I didn't know that when I graduated from college. It took a while to figure that out. And along the way, I scared my parents a little bit. More than a few times, I think, when they wondered why they had so generously given me such a spectacular education here at Williston and beyond. But thanks to support from my family and friends and mentors along the way, I am now doing something that is both challenging and extremely personally satisfying, and something that I'm confident is having an impact. Now, normally I talk about what I do and what we do to protect the ocean. And you can see that online, or I can talk to you about that during lunch or while we're walking around the rest of the day. Come stop us. What I get to talk about less often is how we do it. And I'm not talking about how we take microplastic samples or how we run a solutions workshop. I'm talking more about the strategies. And so this morning I'm going to share the 5 best bits of advice and strategies that I've learned, been given by great people, or developed along the way that's guided not just my own decision-making, but the decision-making of our team. Okay, the first one. Just after college, I did an Olympic sailing campaign. It was in a single-handed boat, and I did not make the Olympic team, but I certainly learned a lot. I did my own fundraising and my own logistics. It was pretty much like running a business. And I got to travel all over the world. Clearly, I did not sail from place to place all over the world, but I got to compete all over the world. And luckily, I got some great advice from one of the first women to ever win a gold medal in sailing. And what she said to me is that she had one really big regret. Even though she had achieved the greatest thing that an athlete trying out for the Olympics could achieve, which is a gold medal, and she said all she saw of the world was marinas. That's it. She traveled all over the world and only saw marinas. And she suggested not to let that happen, to take even a few hours in a place, when I got to be in a place, and to explore it and experience it. And I did get that advice very early and have been pretty strict about it in the best way. And so not just during my Olympic campaign did I have a chance to experience some of the places that I got to go, from France to New Zealand, but as I started doing Rosalia project work and traveling to conferences or to do scientific work, I've had the chance to explore some really amazing places. I have a few highlights. One is in the Arctic Circle. This is in Svalbard, far northern Norway. It makes Iceland seem like it's in a tropical latitude. It's so far north. And more recently in Busan, Korea. I was just there for a World Ocean Forum and got to visit a cultural village that just has art in every corner. And the few hours that I have taken, or maybe a whole day to go on a boat trip to see glaciers, when I wasn't doing boat work or practicing or working or having meetings, every single hour of that has been worth it. So that piece of advice to be where you are was very good. Okay, so I work on the problem of marine debris. And marine debris is an interesting problem because it's not just one problem. There's not just one big thing that is going on with the ocean, and nor is there one big fix. Who has heard of microfiber pollution? Nice, fairly informed audience. Microfiber pollution is what happens when our clothing falls apart or home textiles. We thought it was predominantly happening in the wash, and we're working on figuring out where else it's happening. But these little tiny bits of those longer fibers are washing out into our public waterways. They're getting into the marine food web and the human food chain. And this is what microfiber pollution looks like magnified as it leaves your washing machine. So you can see there are a lot of little pieces. And since most of what we wear is plastic, this is a problem that is part of the microplastic problem. So those are a lot of little tiny things that are making a big problem for the ocean. And so this strategy of remembering something important has guided not just how we look at the problem, but how we've developed a solution. And that is the concept that lots of littles make a big. Lots of little problems add up to a big problem. And we designed a solution to the problem. This is a consumer solution. This is not the solution. It's going to take a whole suite of them. But this is called the Cora Ball. You put it in your washing machine and it swishes around and it helps collect fibers before they can wash out. Not all of them. In fact, there was an independent study done by the University of Toronto. They figured out that the efficiency of the Cora Ball is around 26%, which doesn't seem like a lot to some people, although we'd have gone to market at 10%. We felt so strongly that we needed to address the problem with something. But what they figured out and what they put at the end of this paper is that if all of Toronto used a Cora Ball, so every household in Toronto used a Cora Ball, together the community could keep 6 to 9 trillion pieces of microplastic out of Toronto's wastewater treatment system. And so while lots of littles make a big on the front end, lots of little problems make a big problem, lots of little efforts can add up to make a big positive impact. Okay. When we first started Rosalia Project, we work on a research vessel. You'll see a picture of that in a moment. I got to fill it. It's my organization. I got to put great people. And I started out with mostly undergraduates working in science, sort of with a bend towards marine sciences. That's what made sense. We're working on ocean conservation issues, marine debris, and it was good. And I had some great people, absolutely great people. But it just felt like we could make a bigger impact. And so we started out thinking, all right, what else can we do? And we realized we could be a ship of opportunity. So we could bring established scientists onto American Promise, that's our research vessel, and give them a platform without making them spend a lot of money to do their own work alongside ours. We provide them with some great people. And in doing that, our personnel, our volunteers, our interns started to change. And so this is that first time We had people in their 20s, so we have an ocean engineer and a marine science major in undergraduate. The people on the cabin top are in their 30s. One of them is environmental studies, the other one a physical oceanographer that we were helping her accomplish her master's project. And then there's people in the cockpit that you can't see. This is Seattle, San Diego, Phoenix, and Maine. And then the people in the cockpit is a 40-year-old from Wyoming who is doing microplastic in fish work. She's a wildlife biologist. And a guy in his 50s from Illinois who's a social scientist. And so we started to embrace some interdisciplinarity, looking at how are we going to learn more and have better conversations by bringing people from different backgrounds on the boat, different disciplines as well. And I'm not just talking about a biologist, a chemist, and a physicist, but disciplines within science, and then artists and educators and policy experts. And we had a mom of 2 fishermen, which is really relevant when you're working on lobster industry issues in the Gulf of Maine. And we kept going. I like this picture, and I shared this one because we have 20s, 30s. So 20s from Seattle, 30s from another Arizona, 40s. We have 50s from Vermont who did museum exhibits, a wizard at museum exhibits. And our oldest person, she's still our oldest volunteer to date. Betty is 71 when she joined us as an onboard reporter, and she was also an educator. And we continue to not just seek different backgrounds on the boat, but we're looking for different types of different. And I never had a name to describe this until we joined up as partners with MIT's Environmental Solutions Initiative, and they had the word. And the word is radical interdisciplinarity. And for me, that's what works. I think it's something to be embraced, not just bringing on difference, and that's ethnic diversity, sexual orientation, but artists, scientists, and all these other disciplines, because together there's higher impact to be made. Okay, this is what it looks like when it's going well on a sailboat. It's beautiful, isn't it? We're sailing off the coast of Massachusetts. The people are all accounted for and they're happy. The boat parts are all where they're meant to be, and they are highly functioning. But that's not necessarily how it goes all the time. You saw the kind of boats I sailed before, just me. So it was a transition for me to grow into the role of captain of a 60-foot sailboat in charge of a total of 8 other people, 9 including myself, all the equipment and the mission. And I had some great advice from a friend who's a tall ship captain, so a bigger boat and more people he was responsible for. And this has to do with responsibility and essentially doing some things that you may not want to do. So picture this. It's a dark and stormy night. You're at anchor or at a mooring, and you're the person in charge. You're the captain. So this happens. You're in your bunk, and it is dry and cozy and pretty glorious, and you hear a noise. You don't know what that noise is. So you realize you have some options here to go out and figure out what the noise is, or lie in your bunk and hope that it goes away. My friend described this the following way. He says, everyone has a black box. When you get out of your bunk and go to get cold and wet and crawl around the windy, raining deck until you find whatever is wrong and fix it or determine that it's not a threat, you are making a deposit into your little black box. I think mine's probably blue and purple, whatever you want there. This is a little sort of karmic way to think of this. And every time you do that, you put this deposit in the box, because there'll be times when you need all the goodwill that you've ever built up to help you when things are going beyond your control, even after all the careful work that you've done to make sure everything is in one piece. A sort of karmic thing. A way I've come to think of it is that hope is necessary. We need hope, but hope cannot be a strategy. Action needs to precede hope. So you go out, fix the thing, and then hope that your fix works. That's valid, but lying in your bunk hoping that it goes away isn't, because here's the thing, the worst that can happen is you get cold and wet, and maybe you don't find the problem, so you stay awake until daylight and can establish that everything's okay or fix it. The best thing that happens is you save people's lives, and everything in between is worth the cold and the wet. I have spent most of my time working on nonprofits and then developing the Cora Ball. So that put me on the asking and pitching side of things. As a nonprofit, asking for funding, as a developer of a piece of technology, pitching my idea to people who could help. And last year, 2 years ago, I found myself on the other side of that. Someone was pitching me. They had a little piece of ocean technology, and they were pitching me. We had a demo, and then the demo ended, and we're all kind of sitting around looking at each other, and nothing's really happening. It's just a touch awkward. And finally I say, what do you need? And two very intelligent people who have developed a really cool thing look at me, and they both say, And for me, that was like getting struck by lightning, because that's a terrible way to answer that question. just gonna lay that out there. And I realized that that's a terrible way to answer that question. I realized I had answered that question the same way. And I don't really even say as a course in my general life. And I realized that when someone asks the question, what do you need? They really want to know. They want to help you. I wanted to help these people. If I didn't want to help, I would have said, cool thing. Nice. And that would have been that. But I said, what do you need? And I meant it. Now, the answers can vary, but it's important that when you are ready to answer the question, what do you need, you have an answer that is specific and relevant. I also had this revelation then. Because if they had said, immediately, we need $50,000 from you, that wouldn't have been appropriate, and nothing would have happened the same way as them saying, it would have been about as effective, because I don't have that. That would not have been my role. If they had asked me, we need an introduction to an ocean technology accelerator program manager, I could have done that. If they had said, we need our technology on your boat so you can demo it to other people, I would have done that. So specific and relevant, and thank goodness I learned this just at the right time, because learning this lesson enabled me and my team to do what is now for lack of a better word, the very best expedition that we've done yet. I had been trying to fund this for 2 years, and it is to go to the Hudson River and sample for microplastic. We'd done it once before just looking at the surface. We wanted to add air and soil and the whole water column. And we had applied to National Geographic, but we wouldn't hear. And just at the right time, one of my corporate partners, we ran with our program manager, and she said, what do you need? And I had an answer. I need $20,000 to go do a high-impact, never-before-done microplastic sampling study of the whole Hudson River from Lake Tier of the Clouds, where it starts, to Ambrose Light, where the Hudson meets the Atlantic. And they gave it to us. And then we got a grant from National Geographic that ultimately enabled the whole thing to happen. And so we went to Lake Tier of the Clouds, and we sampled the soil, the air, and the water column all the way to Ambrose Light. That's Ambrose Light, and getting a water sample. And spent some time in New York City doing education in between. And of all the expeditions we've done, this is the one that I think has the most opportunity for impact and has been personally fulfilling for me as well, to become a National Geographic explorer, and that has opened a lot of doors. And that all started by realizing that having the answer to the question, what do you need, specific and relevant, was going to be helpful. And so what I wish for the people in the front row To the people in the back row, the people on the sides, and everyone, is to embrace the places you go, experience the places you go. Remember that lots of littles make a big. Embrace radical interdisciplinarity. Use action before hope, and always have a specific and relevant answer to the question, what do you need? Thank you, and good luck, everyone.